You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
All right. And with the thump, we are here again. It's a Monday night. I'm with my guy, Al Dawg. What up, Al?
What's up, man? How are you tonight?
I'm good. I'm in the midst of moving, which is always an interesting adventure. You get to kind of review your life as you go through all your shit, right?
Yeah. I've done it. It makes me feel like Will Smith in the very last episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when everything's gone and all the furniture and all the memories have been removed. There's this moment where you're like, "Holy shit, it's happening," and then you
Right.
leave, and then it's a new beginning of a new chapter.
And it's like, I got to go marry that bitch Jada now.
Is that how it works?
Well, eventually, I'm just kind of crossing realities here, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting shirt. Oak Hill. Is that in reference to the Virginia high school?
No, Oak Hill is a area of Austin.
Okay.
And my kid played Pony League baseball there for about 5 years, and I coached most of his teams.
Oh, okay.
This was one of my coach shirts at Oak
Okay.
Hill.
I'm repping the UNH Wildcats.
UNH.
Yeah. I got my 90s style hockey coach jumper here.
So UNH, that's the University of New Hampshire. Is that it?
Correct. Yep.
Cool. I always dug Vermont's name, the Catamounts.
Okay.
Like, I'm not even sure what a catamount is, but I don't know if any other college or protein is a catamount as a
what the hell is a catamount?
I think it's a feral kind of thing, like some kind of cat.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm gonna test your sports knowledge right here.
Okay.
All right. Name the only college, the only team I know that has a gorilla as its mascot. It's like the blank gorillas.
Is it a SWAC school?
No, it's I don't even think it's D1. It's not even a D1 school, but
okay, so it's not an HBCU.
no.
Let me think. I have no clue.
School called Pittsburgh State, Pittsburg.
Pittsburgh State Gorillas.
Gorillas, right?
Okay.
I mean,
the G unit.
Okay, hold on a second. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
If you think about it, the gorilla would be a pretty cool fucking mascot for a team.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I think, unfortunately, there would be some very deep political, right, and social implications for having that name as your team. I'm just saying.
When I started a blog in 2015, I called it gorillaradio.tv. And for a logo, I had a gorilla with aviator sunglasses. And a rapper who I used to write about a little bit by the name of Riff Raff. I mean, he was very, very inspired by the logo I made, like very inspired. So inspired that he like made a chain and started calling himself the Vanilla Gorilla with a gorilla with aviator sunglasses. And I know he got the idea from me because he used to like some of my stuff. But yeah, I've done the gorilla logo thing. It's interesting. I mean, if people were to pick up on the, politically incorrect connotations, I would tell them 50 Cent named his rap group the Gorilla Unit. If you got a problem with our gorilla, you got a problem with his gorillas. Okay, so just relax,
Well, they call Trent Williams, the left tackle for the 49ers, big silverback, right? Like,
he's great, by the way. I just watched a clip of him sticking up for your guy, Purdy there. He loves Purdy. San Francisco loves Purdy now, it seems, because he's winning and he's kicking ass, and that kid's awesome.
We're gonna talk a little Brock Purdy, a little Capricorn QBs tonight, as the thumbnail says. There's a great video out there This is when Trent was playing for the Redskins, and this was prime smart ass Richard Sherman, and Richard would just run his mouth. Richard's an Aries, and it was after the game. I think the Seahawks beat the Redskins, and they I don't know where they were, midfield, sideline, who knows. But Richard Sherman was running his jaw, and Trent Williams just fucking corked him. It was
Huh.
beautiful. It was beautiful. Although with all of Trent's strength, I would have thought that he would have buckled Richard a little bit better. Richard took the shot pretty good. But how many people have wanted to hit Richard Sherman in the mouth?
A lot of people, man. He talks a lot, but he talks loudly and he talks very unimpressively. So I can understand Trent's position.
Well, I think Richard is actually pretty intelligent.
Okay.
He went to Stanford. I don't know if he was an affirmative action case, but he's from Compton, went to Stanford. I think Richard's actually pretty smart.
Okay.
Anyway, Tom, who always comes through, says mountain lion, National Wildlife Federation, the mountain lion, also known as the cougar, puma, panther, or catamount, is a large cat species native to the Americas. And Tom also brings in, they called James Harrison silverback too. That's true. James Harrison was scary, man. That dude was scary. You know who he is?
He was a Pittsburgh Steeler?
Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah.
I think he was a free agent. He's one of these guys who's a workout freak.
Yeah, he's very recognizable. I just Googled him. Yeah, I remember that dude vividly. Beast.
Yeah. He's
absolute beast.
Total beast. Let's see. W.C. Ray says, I use Gorilla Glue.
Nice.
I think Gorilla Glue is overrated.
I can't say I've used it.
I think it's overrated. It's like it's
5 years.
supposed to be one of these amazing glues. I'm always underwhelmed by these amazing glues that supposedly hold up incredibly well. I guess unless you're Extinction Rebellion, the glue doesn't really matter in some ways. How long has this been going? Well, that's a relative question. We started at 7:07, but our first show was on 8:14. So that's how long it's been going right now. But in the long sort of cycle, 8:14. Oh, Howard Kane, he's back. Here we go. What's he say? Velcro saved my life. Let's see. Howard Kane said, I had a cougar cruising in my backyard a couple of nights ago. Wow.
Yeah, the cougar is a fascinating animal that we have here in America. It's wild. Like it's basically a lion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever interacted with a cougar in real life?
Yeah, TGI Fridays.
Ha. Okay.
Let's see. Kelly and kids are here. There's a YouTube channel called I Am Puma that I subscribe to, and it's this cougar named Messi who lives somewhere in fucking Russia or someplace like that, and these people make a mint off having this puma. I swear to God.
Oh, is it black?
No. That's Luna. That's Luna.
I've seen Luna.
Yeah, Luna the Panther.
Yes.
Yeah. And then there's the what is it? The cheetah, I guess. The cheetah, who's Messi's little pal. Kelly's here. Hey, Kelly, what's going on? Too funny. I'm wearing PJs with leopards. Look at this. We're in the sink, man. Claire's wearing PJs with leopard spots all over them. And we're having cat. Welcome to Cat Talk. Welcome to Cat Talk with Robert and Al. Al, I've got a couple of felines running around right now. What about you?
Not me, man. It's gonna be a while before I invest in a cat, but I plan on doing it someday, but just not anytime soon. My respect and admiration for cats has grown, over the last decade or so, because I think they can see interdimensionally, personally.
Yeah, I do too.
There's something telepathic about these cats, and I want them on my team. Have you ever seen a cat react super favorably to just one person? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah. Why? What?
Well, this girl I used to date, like how cats reacted to her was
Yeah.
like something else, man. It was something else.
Yeah.
And like they would gravitate towards her, and it was wild to watch. So
So we have a
they're
comment
special,
here. We have a
these
comment here.
cats.
What do you make of this comment? The fact of the matter is that the only Neanderthal broadcaster here is the one on the damn screen. Now, who's the Neanderthal broadcaster? Is that me or you? Or are we both Neanderthal
I'm
broadcasters?
definitely not Neanderthal. I'm Cro-Magnon. And
I'm
I
a
learned that
Cro-Magnon.
on the Old World
I'm a
Florida
Cro-Magnon.
channel. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm 0% Neanderthal. And you're a Cro-Magnon as well.
I'm a Cro-Mag, brother.
Yeah, we're Cro-Mag bros.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
We're
yeah.
Cro-Magas.
He's got
Or no
somebody. He's got
Neanderthal.
somebody else's screen. I think
Okay.
cross channel or something. Yeah, we're Cro-Mags, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We're Bro-Magnon.
Let's see. Harry Bowie said, worked for a lawyer who I called the silverback gorilla. He beat on his chest when he had a big case because he was so short. I guess that's what you do. If you're short, you gotta compensate somehow.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Um, let's see. There's a storm called Jasper in Australia. The reason that's meaningful is because I have a cat named Jasper. He's running around here. There he is. He's right there. So I guess we have a storm called Jasper. The lovely and talented one, Dr. Joan, is here. So if you're in Austin and you need some holistic dental work, check out Dr. Joan Safsick.
That sounds cool.
DDS. Absolutely. The best dentist ever. Here's a buddy, Mark. We got to have Mark back on.
Yeah, Mark, man.
Let's get him on next week.
Dude, you predicted the Dolphins so well. They have been the funnest team to watch all year long. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel is a genius. I think if the football gods were really smiling upon us, a Miami Dolphins 49ers Super Bowl would be very watchable.
I think so. Yeah.
Very, very watchable. I mean, there's narratives there, right? McDaniel used to coach for Kyle Shanahan. These two explosive offenses, right? There's the whole California, Florida thing that Longo and I have gotten into, like all these interesting, weird syncs and variations on the two states. So let's go over some of the games this weekend. Did you see
that?
Yeah,
I caught a few of them actually. I mean, it was cool to watch some good football because I've been watching the Patriots and the Jets all year long. So when I can watch, let's say the Ravens versus the Rams, that was incredible. That was a great game. I caught a bit of the Chiefs game, that ending, and then Patrick Mahomes sort of tantrum explosion, just absolute sort of meltdown, if you will. But I can understand why he was mad, but that was interesting. So yeah, I caught a little bit of that. The Jets did win actually, which is kind of cool. I think the Patriots actually won on Thursday night, which was crazy. So I caught some good games this weekend for sure.
I was very surprised that Zach Wilson has not been a better quarterback until what looked like a breakthrough game last night.
Yeah.
Because if you saw any of his tape in college, I guess he played at BYU, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
I did see some. He was amazing. He would make all these throws from all these different platforms. He could throw in the pocket. He could go off script. He had a big arm. He could move around. He could run. I thought, man, this guy is a lock. He's also astrologically he's a Leo. Leos make pretty good quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Tom Brady, who was the Uber Leo with the Sun Saturn conjunction, and asserted his dominance in the position for 2 decades, right? So there's a pretty good history of Leo quarterbacks. I'm trying to think of who else we have. I know there's another Leo in there. Kurt Warner's a Leo, and Kurt Warner is in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Kurt Warner's got a very weird career. Like he's comes in kind of Brock Purdy-ish, and just starts lighting it on fire with the greatest show on turf. He's there in, I think, St. Louis for about 3.5 years. Eventually, he keeps getting hurt, and then he eventually goes to the New York Giants. And it's this weird period with him in New York, and he's not terrible, but he's kind of in the way of Eli Manning. And so eventually he has to give way to Eli Manning because Eli Manning's going to be playing quarterback. And they release him, and he's signed by the Arizona Cardinals. And he has this incredible renaissance and this resurgence. So he's got these bookend kinds of chapters in his quarterback resume where he's really good at the beginning. He's got a really mediocre kind of where did he go middle. And then he's got a really good end, and it takes him to the Hall of Fame. Did you ever see Warner play when he was in the league?
Oh, dude, definitely. He was part of those early 2000s Rams teams, the greatest show on turf. Him and Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce. Yeah, I caught a lot of that. That was a fun team. That was a fun little era there.
Yeah,
for sure. But didn't he spend some time in the Arena League prior to the Rams?
He was with the Iowa Barnstormers, or the Iowa Barnstorm, I think that's what it was called. So and he's the thing about Warner that made him so good is that when he was in Mike Martz's system, Mike Martz is a Taurus, by the way.
Okay.
Mike Martz's system, Warner had such a quick release that he could get back and throw on schedule very quickly, and that's what made him so good. Because the way Martz had everything, Martz didn't use a fullback, so Martz was always going 3 wides, a running back, and a tight end the whole time. The tight end would sometimes play H-back, Bernie Conwell, and his running back Marshall Faulk would split out sometimes, and they'd go 4 wide, right? And so there was very little pass protection in the Martz offense. It was kind of, I wouldn't say it was a precursor to the Mike
Air
Leach
raid.
air raid.
Yeah,
It was its own thing, right? But there were some similarities, and the thing that made Warner so good was he was able to drop back quickly and then have that release quick, and because he wasn't going to get a ton of time to throw the ball, right? And they had Orlando Pace, who was the left tackle, who was another Hall of Famer, and that certainly helped. But yeah, Kurt Warner, and he's gone. I think Kurt Warner, if I'm not mistaken, kind of coached Brock Purdy up a little bit, because Brock Purdy grew up in Arizona. And of course, I think that's where Kurt Warner ultimately wound up staying after he left the Cardinals. So there is a Kurt Warner Brock Purdy connection.
Mm-hmm.
And there's and they're both Christians too. That's the other thing.
Okay.
Like, they're both hardcore Christians.
That's another thing though, like especially with football, a lot of these players, the strongest players, tend to be very strongly devout Christians. Like
Absolutely.
I've noticed that my entire life. You know what I mean? It's like they have this sort of energy about them where they're playing for more than just themselves or something. Like they're playing like it's life and death almost. I think it gives them like a special power for sure.
It's really interesting. There's this incredible level of faith, right? And would you consider yourself a Christian at all?
I would consider myself a Christian-based drink. If, you got your vodka drinks, your rum drinks.
Right, you're a Christian-based drink?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think this is how I think of it, man. I think the framework of Christianity, Christ being a carpenter, is correct. The frame works. When you enter that house, enter that frame, you're like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And, am I somebody who is going to church every Sunday? No. I had a brief period where I was exploring the Orthodox Church because I thought they were the most hardcore. But no, I don't have any religious affiliation. I tend to lean towards the, astrotheology model, but I think
Yeah.
it's entirely possible that Jesus Christ existed. I think it's entirely possible that basically all of Christianity is right. I just think that, the last millennia or so, the church has sort of diluted the core of it, and I think astrology is at the front of that because I see Christianity and astrology as basically the same thing. And I think there's been a
Yes,
huge,
there's clearly
yeah,
uh, some cookie crumbs, right? Big
yeah.
chunky cookie crumbs.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what was your motivation to go into the Orthodox Church? Was it Jay Dyer?
A little bit because I did podcast him with him in 2018. I was a big fan of Roosh V during this time period. 2018, I had it was called America's Number One Chadcast. Dude, it's kind of crazy the people I hosted on that show. Like guys like Nick Fuentes, guys like Andrew Tate, freaking guys like Jay Dyer, guys that are huge now. I would interview them, talk with them, whatever, on the Dawg author channel, right? It's most of it's still up there. Anyways, yeah, I thought like, okay, these guys are the most hardcore. They seem to take it seriously, and it gets interesting when I exited, and I started reading the Orthodox Study Bible, which is great because it takes the Bible verses and it puts them into plain English. So it's like, oh my God, this is what they're saying. Then I realized a lot of the Catholics that I grew up with, they've never read the Bible in like multiple generations. They've never read it. Probably because they didn't have a study Bible or something like that. So I start attending this based Orthodox Christian church in the early 2000s, and then Bologna viral hit, and I'm thinking to myself like, this is awesome. Like these people are going to stay strong. There's no way they're going to conform to this bullshit. And I'm working with these two guys in I shouldn't say where these two guys, um, these two guys, and they're not bad guys, but they're Democrat leaning gentlemen. And they were super into the Bologna viral thing. And they're like, oh, Alan, you better not go to church. You better not do that because you could spread the Bologna or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, these guys are demons. I'm definitely going to church now. I can't wait because I'm all enthusiastic at this point, right? I have what's called like the fervor of the convert, something like that. And they canceled church, and then they had church when there was, and they were masking up after that. So I'm like, I can't do it. I'm not going. I'm 100% not going. I'm 100% not wearing a mask. I'm not doing any of that stuff. So that was my exit.
Yeah. Well, a lot of churches surprisingly folded during that time. They just
Big
folded
time.
up. It
Big
was
time.
it was not a good look for the institutions of faith, right? I can't speak for mosques. I don't know what was going on in mosque world, but in church
Right.
world, they were all very, very obedient,
Mm-hmm.
highly obedient.
Right.
Crab Gemini says, my church went Zoom. We never went back. There you go.
I think a lot of people had that experience. And like, I was so enthusiastic. I'm like, hell yeah. The based Russian Orthodox Church. There's no way we're going along with this bullshit. And then they all went
It's
along
like
with it.
you thought you found your spiritual army.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
there were some awesome things. They had a great chorus, great service, but just wasn't the hardcore spiritual experience I thought it was. But,
You
not bad overall.
know, there was a time back in the 90s
Yeah.
where there was a guy by the name of Steve Wallace. He used to play for the 49ers. He was a really good player. He played, I think, tackle. And he would uh, start to lead players in prayer circles after the game. And all the networks, once the game was over, and the guys were, both teams would kneel together in prayer after the game, the networks would show them. It's like, here we go,
Yeah.
and it was like, I didn't have a problem with it. They're just, exercising their faith, right? And what's interesting is that to this day, they still do it. You just don't see it anymore, right? You just don't see that coming through the transmission.
Right.
because these networks they don't want to get canceled, right? It's like putting up a statue of Moses somewhere, and then the Satanic Church putting up a statue of Baphomet and two kids, down the block from it, because they have the same freedom of speech kind of experience. So yeah, there is something to there was a period of my life where, like, there are times where you can feel really close to what we call God, right? I mean, I experienced that for an extended period. It was I wouldn't call it a typical Christian kind of conversion experience, although in my world it certainly took on that kind of tone and vibration. And when you're in that space, and you feel that what I would call, for lack of a better term, the Holy Spirit, or something along, you feel very alive, and you feel incredibly calm, and that nothing is too big of a deal, right? Like, you can surmount just about anything when you have this feeling. And it's not just an approximation of what it might feel like to feel the thing. It's an actual vibration, right? Hold on a second. There we
So,
go. I just decided to ban somebody.
oh, so yeah, we were talking about
You know why? Because
players
I
of
could.
faith.
In that moment, the Spirit of God compelled me to
Yeah,
remove somebody from chat. Yes, Penny,
he's
I took
out.
care. Penny, I took care of it. Thank you. I had to go through. I had to go through a few. I had to go through a few comments just to suss the individual out.
Okay, he is exiled from Chataria.
Yes, and Tom, you are a mod. Just to remind you, you have the mod cap on. Good call, Robert. No problem, Claire. But no, seriously, getting back to that. You're welcome, Penny. Getting back to that, it's an amazing feeling. I got to tell you, it's a really amazing feeling, because you're really calm, really peaceful. You feel like, not in a cocky way that you can do anything, but if things come up, there's this inner sense that you can handle things, and you've got this divine kind of edge on your side. It's really, and I think that there are Christians who are who can display that. At least I've been around people like that. To me, that's ultimately what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
My experience, and that
Mm-hmm.
lasted a long time in my life, and it was really interesting, because it was like I had this period where I had all this very intense and accelerated experience and awareness happen. Like, I was leaving my body and seeing auras and all kinds. It was all around the same time, and I really felt like I was in my early 20s, and I really felt like I was so close to, like, hitting the enlightenment trip. Right, I was so close to hitting that switch, and then I started to get really frustrated, because I would get to these certain points, and I was like, okay, well, what's beyond this? What's beyond this? And then I didn't get there, and it was like, okay, I had this experience, and now it was like, it's time to leave it's time to leave the ashram. It's time to leave the monastery and go back into life, right, and begin to experience these things on a day-to-day level. And that's where I've been ever since. Any Ward throws this up here. The NFL is so rigged this year, the refs aren't even hiding anymore. Let's talk about that. We had that play last night in Kansas City.
Yeah.
With Mahomes, and I watched that play, and Kadarius Toney looked at the ref, and he asked the ref if he was okay on the line,
And they still called it.
and they still called it.
I didn't know about that part. That's insane. I mean, you know what? Speaking about the NFL being rigged, I had a huge breakthrough that I trust a lot of people in the audience, and you, Rob, have probably had as well. I think the NFL is a giant psychological conditioning that gets people to worship authority, even when they know it's bullshit. We all know the refs in the NFL are crooked. We know it, but we watch it anyways.
You could put that. You could take that and scatter it across all the sports. And
Exactly, 100%, dude. It's like
Yeah.
what do they call it? The Milgram experiment, where somebody's in a lab coat, and since this one person is in a lab coat, they go along with the bullshit. The NFL is like that on a massive scale because we know the refs.
I've talked about this before. Even
Yeah,
when you look at the referee's garb, which is
Mhm.
black and white, it's
Yeah.
duality, good and bad. Also, if you look at classic examples of squad cars that are black and white, so
Yeah.
they represent police. It's also the black and white of the Masonic checkerboard. So you're absolutely right. It's all about, and here's what I love about sportscasters, and some of whom are actually quite smart, and
I'd agree with
bring up
that.
this idea that the NFL is rigged, and
Yeah.
they'll laugh at you, and
Right. Oh my God.
they'll
Yeah.
say, "Oh, where's your tinfoil hat?"
Right.
Right, dude. Just watch the fucking games.
Exactly. And it's
Your
like,
eyes don't lie here, right?
yeah, and it's so in your face that it's like the only way they can't see it, if it's so in front of their face that they can't see it, it's like right in between their eyes. They can't see it. That's the only way you don't, because everybody else does. And the thing is that it's kind of like, why would your response be to laugh if you're not engaging in like duper's delight or just such a silly, just like sanctimonious view of the NFL or professional sports where there's no way it could be corrupt, when there's guys like Tim Donaghy who's on podcasts, right? He was an NBA referee and he's on podcasts telling you guys all the time, telling people all the time, like, yeah, I was doing that during this game, and that's public, right? So,
I
it's
used to,
really,
long time
wild.
ago, when I was streaming on Spreaker, I used to have this guy, Brian Toohey, on my show.
Yeah.
And Brian's an author, and he's written 2 books about the NFL being rigged. And
Wow.
one of the things that's like completely conclusive is that, and Brandy Crab Gemini brings it up right here. I'm going to throw this up on the screen. Crab Gemini, the NFL, on the back of the ticket, it is classified as entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they can legally determine what the outcomes are. It's not. They're covering their ass legally, right? So this is what Brian Toohey, in his deep dives into the rigged nature of the NFL, was able to uncover, and I totally believe that.
Yeah.
I totally believe it. I mean, it's clear. Let's talk. I want to talk about Kansas City a bit more. Taylor Swift is becoming the story of their season.
You know why? I've been thinking about this. She's 33. This is the year of the horse, or she was born in 1990, a horse year. She's 33 and she's a Sagittarius. This is her year.
Well, so this year we're in right now is the year of the rabbits, and next year is the dragon. But she is born in the year. She is horsey.
Yeah,
She's
super horsey.
Yeah, she's super horsey, and she's like. And I was on Twitter yesterday, and Chris Knowles had a tweet, and every single magazine at the magazine rack at this retail space had Taylor Swift on the cover.
Okay.
Like, what is going on here? Right? There's something major going on.
Okay, so here's my follow-up question to you.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift everywhere. What is the connection with the Swift banking system and where we go forward potentially into a digital currency realm? What is your take on that?
Well, we talked about this a little bit. I think it was 4 shows ago.
Yeah.
But on the Chiefs, you have Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. And on the Eagles, you have Jason Kelce and DeAndre Swift. So both teams represented by the Kelce brothers, also connected to Swift. And yeah, is it the demise of the Swift banking system and we go to the CBDC, maybe Taylor Swift to me right now has that lady in red vibe, right? She's like, um, who is it? Is it? I think it's Kim Basinger in The
Okay.
Natural, right? When Roy Hobbs meets up with the harlot, the Jezebel, the lady in red, the Kim
Yeah.
Basinger character. That's who Taylor Swift reminds me of,
Okay.
and she has um, this incredibly bad juju that she is bringing to that team. And why is that? Why? What's really going on here? I mean, do you really think that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are totally in love?
I think they like each other. That's kind of my gauge on it, but I definitely think it's something that was set up by agents. I think it's something that's been set up as part of something much bigger. That's my gut feeling on this whole scenario.
I saw this clip of her yesterday. She was walking into the Chiefs locker room, I think, at the stadium, and the Bills players were waiting for her just because they wanted to get a glimpse of Taylor Swift.
Mm-hmm.
There's about 4 or 5 Bills players, and she walked in there like she owned the fucking place.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been watching the NFL and sports for a long time, and you'll get these crossovers with actresses and musicians sometimes and athletes, but I've never seen anything like this. Right? There was a time when Madonna was horny for Jose Canseco, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you had what's her name, Alyssa Milano, and she banged all those baseball players. Who, by the way, all those guys that she wound up having affairs with, their careers nosedived after they hung out with her. And then, of course, you have the Kardashians
Mm-hmm.
and the curse of the Kardashians. A lot of those dudes that went into Kardashian land,
Yeah.
they
And
never.
they ended up with mental illness, a lot of them.
A lot of them. The only guy that seemed to do okay was Tristan Thompson,
Mm-hmm.
who had a big "fuck you" attitude. But all those
Mm-hmm.
other dudes, their careers just, ran into brick walls and cul-de-sacs. The worst, of course, being Lamar Odom, right? So there
Yeah.
is a history of women who attach themselves to athletes and have a deleterious effect on them. Go back, Marilyn Monroe, Joe DiMaggio, although I think DiMaggio it didn't really affect him. But has there ever been a woman affect a team so much? Right? We know that they can affect players. Like Reggie Bush was Kim Kardashian's boyfriend, right? And what happens to Reggie Bush? He loses his fucking Heisman.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a good career, not a great career. And he was slated to be, next big thing, the running back position.
Dude, Reggie Bush has to be somebody that has a very hard time watching college football because he's one of those guys who would have raked in millions, but they took away his trophy because he accepted some money. You know what I mean? But yeah, dude, I have so much to say about what you're saying because it's almost like she's the whore of Babylon is kind of what you're saying. And she
Right.
has
So
this mystical power. Fucking her tour was called the Eras Tour. The Eras Tour.
Eris, Discordia. Here, so there are 2 comments here, and I want to contrast them a little bit. This is from Brandy. Travis isn't doing as well as he was. He appears to have literally slowed down. I would agree with that. I would agree. Travis Kelce is having a subpar season.
Wow.
Right. And I would say that, okay, to quote the famous Pete Shelley, have you ever fallen in love with someone you shouldn't have fallen in love with? You know what I'm talking about? You're with somebody and clearly it's the wrong choice.
And it affects your energy.
It affects your energy.
Yes.
It affects your outlook, right? And then you wind up kind of getting dug into this very kind of codependent vortex. It's almost like quicksand. And the more you try to get out, the weaker you get. You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about, man.
Okay. All right. So we've established a baseline here.
Yeah.
Now, Astro Emotion says, well, it's all staged. I think both things can be equally true.
Right.
Right? Like Travis Kelce is having a horror Babylon Lady in Red moment. And it's going to affect the entire team. And let's just say that their agents got together and said, we know that you two, like each other's company. Why don't you, take it a few steps, further, and let's co-brand here, right? People are into the co-brand. So to that effect, I would say that there's some staging involved, but I think both things can be equally true. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would, man. And it's like if you put two attractive people in a room, it's not hard for them to like each other. You know what I'm saying? Liking people is kind of easy.
So okay. Tom Jordan, Kaepernick's girlfriend, screwed up the team. Do you know much about Ness Nitty and Kaepernick?
I don't specifically. I can assume she's a big time SJW, probably has tattoos, probably has some ideas about white people, some ideas about black people. That's all just assumption.
So she's on this show on Hot 97
Oh
in New
God,
York.
she's that deep into the game. Oh
That
my God,
game.
dude.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So Ness Nitty, astrologically, I did their charts a long time ago. She's a Taurus and Kaepernick's a Scorpio, and those opposites attract, right?
Mhm.
And Kaepernick was going through this weird phase with it. By the way, I wanted to bring this up tonight too. I went back and I watched the 2012 playoffs with Kaepernick and the 49ers.
Yeah.
And that fucking 49er team was so good. It's the one that went to the Super Bowl against John Harbaugh, the brothers versus brothers, the Civil War Super Bowl in New Orleans.
Right.
And they played Green Bay. Oh, did I freeze? Oh, fuck. I think I froze.
Your voice is good, but your
Give it a
video's a little
second.
frozen.
Give it a
It's
second.
actually kind of cool. You're in like this contemplative thinking
Yeah,
man pose.
I'll see how it goes.
Okay.
I'm like the contemplative old fuck in the porch right now. So that team was. I went back and I watched those games.
Yeah.
And Kaepernick was incredibly good.
Right.
Like he was able to thread the needle on passes, big arm. He had a little bit of touch, and they cleaned the clock of the Packers and the Falcons. And then the whole bottom falls out with that team, and Harbaugh winds up leaving. The league kind of figured out Kaepernick a little bit, and he was rehabbing from a shoulder, non-throwing shoulder injury. And Ness Nitty was hanging out in the Bay Area because her boyfriend was this guy, Aldon Smith, who played for the 49ers. And Aldon was a beast of a defensive end.
Right.
And Aldon had a drinking issue.
Wow.
Like Aldon liked to party, and Ness Nitty wound up leaving Aldon Smith for Kaepernick. This is his drama behind the scenes, right? And if you're the quarterback of a team, you don't do that shit.
Right.
You just don't do that. You don't snatch this guy Aldon Smith's girl, and knowing that Aldon is already kind of, on the verge of being kicked out of the league because all he does is get drunk and crash his car and shit. So Aldon winds up bashing Kaepernick's car.
Whoa.
And so there's this story that somehow Kaepernick's car got into a wreck. It was really Aldon Smith that beat the hell out of it. But then Ness Nitty became Kaepernick's handler. She became his handler. She got him onto a vegan diet. She got him hooked on social justice. And that was it, man. So he had his own version of the Lady in Red.
Dude, that's funny because you know what that actually reminds me of? I think that's how it works with a lot of men is that the woman in their life actually does become their handler, whether it's from a deep state espionage angle. The best example being Donald Trump Jr. and who he dates, that chick, Newsom's ex-wife. Am I right?
Well, that's the whole
She's
Trump
his handler, Guilfoyle or whatever the fuck her
Guilfoyle,
name is.
Kimberly Guilfoyle. So Laura Trump, who
Yeah.
was Donald Trump Jr.'s first wife.
Yes, it's
Before
just
she
beautiful.
married-
They have a beautiful family, and it's
Right,
like he left them for
for-
this like Kimberly Guilfoyle, fucking Gavin
Botox
Newsom's
bimbo.
ex-wife.
Botox bimbo, right?
Exactly. So it's
Yeah.
like you see this beautiful family, and then you see this bitch who's like not. She's not all that. I mean, maybe she can present well on TV, but she's just not all that, right? And you kind of wonder what's going on there. I think she's his handler personally.
Well, it feels like it because half the time I'm seeing he's coked out of his brain.
Oh, Donald Trump Jr. Yeah,
Oh,
and dude, like, you know what's crazy about him? Talk about unproductive. That dude has been posting memes on the internet and just giving out the most bland and uninteresting talking points for damn near 8 years now. It's like, dude, talk about underperforming when you had an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, Sharon Osbourne is the ultimate handler. Totally.
Mhm.
You know, Sharon and Ozzy, she's Ozzy's wife handler. Total handler.
That makes total sense.
And any Ward knows his football because when Kaepernick was at Reno and they were running that pistol offense under Chris Alt, they were just running teams out of the stadium. I mean, they were like high 30+ points every single game during Kaepernick's run in Nevada Reno.
From what I've seen of Kaepernick at Reno, he looks so happy. Like he looks just distinctly happy and like full of energy and life.
He was a Christian, for crying out loud.
Right. You see pictures of him with his parents that adopted him, and they're smiling and they're happy to be there and they're proud of their son and he's happy. He's doing great. Like it's just got this exuberance for life that we saw from Kaepernick in Reno. That's what I saw and what I see when I look at those pictures and those images.
And now he's just become this absolutely sour and dour figure of a failed kind of, revolutionary. I mean, that's really, it's Colin Kaepernick's endgame is going to be quite sad.
He's getting used and abused by his handler, and when he is no longer of use,
when she's done with it, dude,
he'll be discarded.
Absolutely.
And he'll gain like 40 pounds. That's
Colin Kaepernick's endgame is not good.
Have you read that in his chart as well?
He's got a really weird chart. He's got a Sun Pluto, like almost exact Sun Pluto conjunction in Scorpio. He's a very intense dude, right? But and he had this abrupt, very scorpionic kind of flaming car wreck to the end of his career in the NFL, and he has never been able to break on through to the other side and become reborn, which is what the Scorpio is supposed to do. And he's as long as they're making Netflix specials about his life and he has his shitty vegan ice cream from Ben and Jerry's, he'll go along with the program. But when all that stuff ends and he just becomes an afterthought, like this year he wrote a letter to the New York Jets begging
I
them
saw
to
that.
let him play.
Dude, like let's say that's just the nature of showbiz. Like let's say Caleb Williams starts doing the social justice thing. Nobody's going to care about Cap anymore because he's going to get replaced by somebody who's new to the scene.
Well, I think they can only play that card one time.
Okay.
They can only play it one time because people will just go, oh, not another one.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
He's already got that bad brand.
Right. Okay.
I have this theory. I really got into not that I was worshiping Kaepernick, but I found him to be this really interesting character, like mythologically. This is actually a pretty interesting breakdown. so it's between him and Jim Harbaugh, and I forget what it was, but he and Harbaugh had this really interesting connection astrologically, and he was Harbaugh's choice. He was a second round pick out of Nevada Reno, and Harbaugh specifically wanted Kaepernick to be on his team. So they picked him in the second round. I'd seen him play at UNR, and just a freak in that system. And I got this sense, right, like that I think it was around the notes. I think it was around the notes in Kaepernick's chart with Harbaugh, that Harbaugh and Kaepernick had done this before, like Oliver Reed and Russell Crowe in Gladiator, right? Like they were those two guys, right? Like Kaepernick had been Harbaugh's Gladiator in a different timeline, right? And the guy who was the offensive coordinator for the 49ers was Greg Roman. And I thought to myself, well, this totally fits, right? So you have this guy Roman, i.e., kind of this Roman period, this kind of Roman historical sort of narrative. And then you had, basically the Oliver Reed character, who's the warrior slave trader in Harbaugh. And then you have Kaepernick, who's the warrior or the gladiator. And his mother's last name is Russo, which is his birth mother is Russo, which is red. And red is the color of Mars. And Mars is the color of Aries. And guess what? Colin Kaepernick has an Aries moon, right? So all these weird things that were aligning with Kaepernick with this kind of, Romanesque narrative. And it really played out that way in a lot of ways. And even this idea that, the NFL in his mind was like, slavery and a plantation. And it's this juxtaposition of maybe somebody who might have been indentured, during that, particular narrative, right? That particular timeline, like the Russell Crowe character in Gladiator, and then really hadn't lived it through in this incarnation with the NFL. It's like, dude, you got all this fucking money. You're free. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're not a slave anymore. You're free. You've broken your contract. You've gotten out of your contract, which is what he did with the 49ers. Like he had an out with the 49ers and it was a player option and he took it. He could have said, nah, I want to stay here. But he didn't because he lost his job to Blaine Gabbert and he started to no, he's no Russell Crowe. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just using that as an analogy
mm-hmm.
in terms of the character that Russell Crowe played in Gladiator.
Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't know about that player option where he basically,
he opted out. It was his option.
That's wild. I didn't know that part.
Option. And John Elway loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And the weird part is that Kaepernick's mother lives in Denver. And he doesn't speak to his birth mother. He does not speak to his birth mother. He's got a huge chip on his shoulder with his birth mother. And every now and then they do like articles on her, and more so when he was playing. I have this theory that his father is what's his name? James Lofton.
Dude, I got a theory, sports theory for you. Okay, LeBron James, right? Yeah. If you visualize his physiognomy, his facial features, right, from the Cleveland area, apparently doesn't know who his biological father is. Do you recall a guy named Greg Oden, who was about 7'2"? He got drafted out of Ohio State. He was basically a bust.
Yeah, I know. He was the guy that had like partial left foot or something. He had a
beast, just an absolute beast of a human being, like 7'2", but just didn't pan out in the NBA. If you visualize his facial features and compare them to LeBron's, they're very similar. Both from Cleveland, the Cleveland area, don't know who their biological father is. I think they're like brothers. That's my personal theory.
You think they're brothers?
I think LeBron James and Greg Oden are at least half brothers. Yeah.
Yeah. So who would the father be then?
We don't know. Just some tall fucking dude, right? Some tall dude who can hoop.
You know, it's something. Some of these guys, you wonder if they're like projects.
Somebody like Yao Ming, definitely, 100%. And this too, do you know about this dude? I didn't really know. I knew about it loosely, but this guy, this Japanese pitcher slash DH who just signed a $700 million deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Oh, Tani?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a project. He's most likely a Japanese GMO test tube, just from birth, engineered to play baseball.
You know what's amazing about Otani's contract?
What?
He's getting $700 million, and almost all of it is deferred. And so his seasonal salary is like $2 million a year.
Oh my God! So where is that money going? Is it going to the Japanese government? I would assume.
No, he's going to get it later, right? He'll get it later, and he'll most likely, if we're still in the same financial game, he'll get it later, and because it's deferred, and he's living in Japan, he won't have to deal with California taxes.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah, pretty smart contract. I hate the Dodgers.
Do you?
Fucking hate the Dodgers. Yeah, I mean, they did the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence last year at Chavez Ravine, and then they wound up losing in the playoffs. I thought that was the only team that did not have a gay pride night last year was the Texas Rangers.
Wow.
And they won the World Series.
Fascinating correlation.
And the team that everybody picked to win the World Series, heavily loaded, biggest payroll in baseball, indulged themselves with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, and they couldn't get it out of the first round of the playoffs.
What exactly is the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence?
The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence are a group of gay men that live in San Francisco. That's where they're based out of, although they're more everywhere now. And they dress up in this very kind of clownish, sort of like campy, vampy, clownish kind of occult nun sort of style. Like they look like
just
nuns.
Satanic, essentially.
Yeah, they look like satanic nun clowns.
Okay.
And they're very into the occult, and they supposedly do good works, right? So the Dodgers during Pride Month honored the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Yikes. And there was a big uproar at the with the Dodger community because there's a lot of Latinos that watch Dodger games, and they're heavy Catholics, and they weren't into it. So the Dodgers called it off, and then the Dodgers didn't call it off, and they put it back in to their celebration rotation, and so they had fucking bullshit little ceremony, whatever. But yeah, and they went down first round of playoffs. There you go.
Wow. So, Rob, we're almost at the top of the hour here. Do we want to launch the transmission? You can reboot your camera situation.
Yeah, why don't we do that? I'm actually gonna use the facilities.
Okay.
As they say. So why don't we do this? Let's do a little Sirius transmission.
All right.
With our guy, the Dawg Star. And then when we come back, let's get into these
I can't wait. I cannot wait to get into Deion's handler. I've been thinking about this the past week.
Oh, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, that's going to be huge.
It's a big story. I'm surprised that Jason didn't cover that thing.
It's the biggest story to me. Like, it
really
puts everything into context.
It really. Once we get into this, once we talk about this, you guys know where we're going with it.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
All right, guys, it's time to get serious. I have a huge announcement for all of you and for all of us here at Sirius Sports. We're launching a Substack. I'm going to be doing some writing, some exclusive things for you all. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I did this little write-up, and I'm going to put it in the chat. And I love Substack. I think it's one of the greatest platforms of the last decade, because you can write, you can post videos. I already downloaded and put all of the episodes on the Substack because I like having a backup source, because we've been working hard on the show. You guys have been enjoying it. It's the number one astrology sports show in the game. So I'm going to read this little thing I wrote up, and that's what we're going to do for the Sirius transmission here. Let's rock. Okay. Sports and astrology is the passcode to American culture and the cosmos. There's only one show that understands this, and one audience that truly gets it. I guess you could say things are pretty serious. In this show's short history, we've predicted the return of Aaron Rodgers and the rise of the Miami Dolphins months and months prior to the so-called experts. There's no wonder why ESPN has tried to copy us. Simply put, this is where it's at. I know this for a fact. Sirius Sports has a big announcement for all of our listeners and viewers. We're launching a Substack, and we're launching it right here on the Sirius transmission. What you're listening to right now is actually the first post on our Substack. I'm reading it out loud. The next question you're probably asking yourself is why? For a few reasons. Build an email list. Back up all the episodes in case of emergency. That gives me peace of mind, personally. Have a place to post writings, video, all audio, all in one place. Take this Sirius transmission to the next level, because I'm going to be reading out loud a lot of my write-ups on our Sirius Substack. And also to take the show to the next level. And now, for another huge reason, you have the option, totally voluntarily. We're going to be coming live every day. I mean, not every day, but every week or so on YouTube, regardless, right? But you now have the option to support Sirius Sports directly for $5 a month or $50 a year. It's not that serious, but at the same time, it's kind of serious. The time is now to support Sirius Sports. $5 a month is like buying 1 gallon of gas. You keep this vehicle cruising along as we navigate the sports world through a telescopic worldview. I'm a Jupiter and Leo egomaniac and eternal athlete. Rob is an encyclopedia and one of the top astrologers in the game. We're serious. Are you? I'm an author that's 10 times more interesting than Hunter S. Thompson, and also way cooler and funnier. Rob is a sports commentator that doesn't need to watch the game in order to understand the narrative. We're both Virgos, and I can assure you the Virgo work ethic is fully intact with this show. I forgot a word there. I got to write it. I had that in. So I work 40 hours a week at a construction job, write books on weekends, Sirius Sports on Mondays, and new episodes of Astro Chats on weekends. Rob does the Astro Weather, 15 Minutes of Flame, the Friday Forecast, and the Sunday Night Astro Live Show, in addition to Sirius Sports on Mondays. That's over 20 hours of content per week at least. So why support Sirius Sports? Because there's no show like this, and we're just getting started. Season 2 begins sometime after the Super Bowl, at which point we'll do episodes every other week, sometimes every week. During that time period, technological upgrades will be made, marketing and outreach will increase. To be honest with you guys, I'm actually pretty sick of working outside in New England, especially in the winter. It's fucking cold. I got to be honest. Between the books and the podcast, I'm attempting to free myself and pursue my destiny. Jupiterian expansion is upon us. Truthers need a sports show that isn't about gematria. I'm going to repeat that, okay? Truthers need a sports show that isn't about gematria. Clutch. The time to support Sirius Sports is now. No pressure. We will continue. Just asking for some extra rocket fuel. The spirit of truth, mystery, and adventure awaits us. So that was the Sirius transmission. I'm going to actually copy and paste this and put this into the chat, because that way you can just sign up with your email address. If you choose to support, that'd be awesome. If not, no big deal at all, because we're going to be working on some other, like, I'm going to be doing some exclusive write-ups, I'm thinking, for the Substack, because I think that's a lot of fun. And I'm just going to copy and paste it into the chat now. I think this has been the Sirius transmission. I think I can hear Rob is circling back to the studio, and I might end the transmission with a little pause, just an awkward pause, as I copy and paste this into the chat.
Hey, so I'm here, but only via audio. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Keep transmitting.
Okay. Transmitting. Okay, I cannot wait. There it is. Oh my God, how did T Jordan is so on top of things right now? He's already in there. So awesome. Okay, so what we're going to talk about next is something I'm really excited about. We're going to talk about Deion Sanders' handler. He has this agent who is, and we're going to read the full article. I've been waiting to talk about this all week. I've been thinking about this all week. And I'm going to play, you can call me Dawg Pacino, because I'm going to be playing a little devil's advocate here for Mr. Sanders. And I know that Rob is going to sort of take the other position. So I'm going to do a little Dawg Pacino devil's advocate, right? Because Deion Sanders is an op, to put it simply. Maybe he isn't consciously aware of it, but the whole Coach Prime, the most aggressive media onslaught I've ever seen. If you turn on a football game, you're going to see a Deion Sanders commercial. And the whole Coach Prime phenomenon is an op. Like, it is something that is being used. He's being used as a cultural proxy. Now, the woman we're going to talk about, who is also, she's an agent, essentially. She is in entertainment. And she's also behind Wiz Khalifa. Okay, so the same woman that's behind the rise of Deion Sanders is also behind Wiz Khalifa. If you guys know who Wiz Khalifa is, he's a rapper and perhaps the most talentless hack in the game. Like, he is not a talented musician at all. He just talks. He talks about pot, and he hasn't advanced his artistry in decades. He's really lame. He sucks. This Mr. Wiz Khalifa. He had some catchy songs back in the day. I was a fan, I must admit. She's also behind Snoop Dogg. This woman is also behind the whole Coach Prime you're seeing everywhere. Rob is back. He's live in effect. I was just giving them the primer for what we're going to talk about next, which is Coach Prime and his handler.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, this is a doozy.
Okay.
I was talking about Sirius Sports earlier. Nobody else is covering this, and this to me is like the biggest deal, because as you guys know, I've been a Colorado Buffalo fan this season, but what we're going to talk about puts everything into context. And yeah.
Let me see if we can bring this up here. So this is, I guess, the Athletic. Okay. So Al and I have been going back and forth with this whole Deion scenario, and trying to understand, like, sort of the origin of it, or the organic roots of it, if there even is such a thing as the organic roots of it. So as I went down the Deion, here we go. This is Harriet. We got to bring this up here. Harriet, there's a crossover. There's a crossover for Snoop and where we're going with all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Total crossover. All right. So Deion was having a midlife crisis. That's what was going on with Deion Sanders. He was doing some stuff at the NFL Network. I remember watching him sort of comment on highlights after games with this guy, Chris Rose. And you could tell that Deion just had utter disdain for Chris Rose. Deion didn't like what he was doing. I remember him grumbling on one segment that he's basically doing to pay off his ex-wife Pilar. And so he was not happy, right? That Deion was a man without a purpose and a man without a plan. He wanted to be around his sons, so he didn't want to go into announcing full time. So Deion runs across this woman. And the title of this is from The Athletic. Meet the woman behind Deion Sanders, Coach Prime business empire. It all starts in her brain to turn Deion into Coach Prime. Right? Now she's going to build a brand. Or, well, who is this woman? I'm just going to read a little bit of this. Fort Worth, Texas is less than an hour after Colorado, a 20.5-point underdog, shocked number 17 TCU. And the entire college football establishment in disbelief hangs over Amon G. Carter Stadium. A few hundred yards away, Constance Schwartz Morini sits in the back of a black SUV heading to a private airport, sifting through her smartphone as hundreds of congratulatory messages pour in. Schwartz Morini is one of the few leaving TCU who isn't the least bit surprised at what she witnessed. A Colorado team that finished 1-11 last year, newly led by NFL legend Deion Sanders, underwent the biggest roster overhaul in college football history, and they just defeated an opponent that played for the college football playoff championship last season. A New Yorker with a deep Rolodex of sports contacts, Schwartz Morini is Sanders' business partner and manager, and much like Colorado's new head coach, is like nothing college football has seen before. Here we go. Here's the Snoop Dogg connection. Snoop Dogg calls Schwartz Morini a consigliere. Sanders calls her a visionary and a pit bull in pumps. Colorado athletic director Rick George calls her unique. Well, there is a term. And he says, she has both Sanders and Colorado's best interest in mind. In the car, one of the first calls she makes is to Sanders, fresh off his first FBS victory, led by his son Shador, who threw for a school record 510 yards. The call is brief. The tone is celebratory. Schwartz Morini informs him that during the broadcast, Sanders was featured in 3 national commercials, an Aflac ad co-starring Nick Saban, a new campaign for California almonds, and a third for Kentucky Fried Chicken, which included his entire family. It was a big day for Colorado, Deion Sanders, and his brand. The advertisements were all shot before Sanders' surgeries to remove blood clots in both legs this offseason. And Schwartz Morini had forgotten they were scheduled to run during the nationally televised season opener. Her team at SMAC Entertainment, it stands for Sports, Media, and Culture. It includes Michael Strahan, Aaron Andrews, and Wiz Khalifa among its clients. Knew the spots would be airing. Still, she'd been so focused on the Buffalo's debut that she didn't realize it until she was in Georgia's suite. Seemingly every time she looked up at the TV, Coach Prime was on the screen. I had a group text going with my team. This is amazing, Schwartz Morini said. Yes, it was exciting to win the first game, which we all knew he could. But it's the first game. We have a long season ahead of us. I'm thankful for the brand partners for believing as well. But we're also now taking a breath. We've got a few long months ahead of us. They sure did. All right, so here we go. A Yonkers, New York native, Schwartz Morini grew up a fan of the Yankees, Giants, and Rangers. Her dad, a former Marine, worked for MTA, the Public Transit Authority. Her mom was a school teacher who later became a florist. I'm a blue-collar kid through and through, she says proudly. I always say I grew up in the shadow of Scarsdale, and then I grew up in the shadow of Syracuse, going to SUNY Oswego. So I had an attitude out of the gate. She graduated in the early 1990s, which she describes as the dark ages, as in pre-internet. She sought a career in advertising. She loved the creative element, was drawn to the idea of creating campaigns. She signed up with an employment agency, which pointed her toward an entry-level job with NFL properties. It was similar to how my whole career has gone. My gut just went off. That's where I belong, Schwartz Morini says. Unfortunately for her, that job had been filled. She was advised to get office experience and learn everything she could in that capacity. So she did. 10 months later, she returned to the employment agency to inquire about any opportunities within the NFL. A job with Maureen Rosen, vice president of corporate sponsorships at NFL Properties, had opened. It would prove to be Schwartz Morini's big break. Once she saw how eager and hungry and capable I was, she said the more I could handle, the more she would let me do, she says of Rosen. Schwartz Morini worked at the NFL for a decade, eventually becoming the league's director for television programming in entertainment marketing. Rosa taught me everything she knew, and there were certain lessons that she taught me that to this day I pass on to everybody that's worked with me or worked with us at Smack. Schwartz Marini says that is the golden rule, which is when you mess up, I use a different word, which you're going to do, you have to own it. You go right to your boss and say, I messed up. Because the more that you try to lie about something or just do it on your own, it will snowball, and then it's too hard to ever fix it. That's literally the golden rule of working with me. It's not a bad principle, actually. In 2001, Schwartz Marini left the NFL to become vice president at talent management agency, The Firm, creating its strategic marketing and sponsorship division. For almost a decade, she managed Snoop Dogg as his career soared well beyond his music and helped him launch the Snoop Youth Football League. She was also the driving force behind Michael Strahan's transition from Super Bowl champion defensive lineman to Emmy-winning TV host, producer, entrepreneur, best-selling author. In 2011, she and Strahan co-founded Smack. Though Schwartz Marini had met Sanders while working at the NFL, the relationship grew through Snoop Dogg's annual Snooper Bowl game, where his teams often competed against those in Deion's Truth Youth football program. After one of those games, he called me and said, I'm looking for a new team. Could you tell me who handles Snoop's marketing or Snoop's PR? I said, I do. She says, and he just kept asking me all these questions. I said, well, do you want to work with me? He said, that would be great. Let's meet on that. And that's how our relationship really started. Okay. So she gets him into coaching. She gets him into this brand of being Coach Prime, right? So to me, this is really fascinating from a cultural level.
Right.
You have this white woman, I would assume her politics lean left liberal.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume that. And then what does she do? She takes on these clients, Deion, Strahan, Wiz Khalifa, Snoop Dogg, all four of them happen to be black, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with it. You can have any client you want. But then she takes on Aaron Andrews. And
Yeah.
and for Aaron Andrews, she wants Aaron Andrews to be kind of the female version of her black clients, right? And break
Mm-hmm.
through whatever she's theoretically doing based on, her gender, right?
Right.
And it's really odd, right? That the driving force behind all four of these guys
Yeah.
is this woman, right? This matriarch. And the way that she has kind of set everything up too, right? Like with Michael Strahan, she set him up with Kelly Ripa, right? So there's that kind of the intermingling, right?
Mm-hmm.
The mixing that's going on. Then
Yeah.
she set Snoop Dogg up with what's her name,
Martha Stewart.
Martha Stewart, right?
Right.
So again, right, this co-mingling, sort of this, the mixing, right?
Yeah.
And even now, Deion Sanders is doing something with Aaron Andrews, right? So she's
Mm-hmm.
pairing these guys up with these white women who happen to be brands unto themselves.
Right.
And it's like, and we talked about this, was it about a week ago or 2 weeks ago? And we
Yeah.
talked about how if you watch a commercial during the NFL, you won't see a commercial that has a white male in it. And if you do, then he's going to be either gay or a doofus,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is kind of fitting the program.
Big
And
time.
and here we have Deion Sanders with Aaron Andrews, right? So this is the two of them. And Aaron Andrews dresses as Deion Sanders for a Halloween with a "You Go Girl" response from Coach Prime, right? So this whole thing, right? Aaron Andrews with the video with Deion Sanders goes viral. So there's this whole weird thing going on now with Aaron, and I don't know if it's at the same level as a made up showmance that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce have,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's like, okay, let's get Deion into the heartland of America. Not that Colorado hasn't had black coaches before. Carl Durrell was there, Mel Tucker was there, right? So it's not like they haven't taken a big liberal cut, at hiring a black coach. This is the third go round, but of the three, Deion is the most urban,
Mm-hmm.
right? Mel Tucker is an old school football coach.
He's the
Carl
most
Durrell,
he's the most hip hop. He has fucking DaBaby coming
right?
in to
Well,
speak
he's
for
urban, right?
players.
That's the word I would use would be urban.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
that demographic. Carl
Mm-hmm.
Durrell, nice guy, West coach, cool dude. Didn't do well in Colorado, but this is a break, right? This is a break. He's never been a coach at this level, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, those other guys were nice diversity hires, but now you're going to get a real black coach,
Mm-hmm.
right? And here comes Deion, and oh, by the way, Aaron Andrews is coming along for the ride too. So there's this disrupt. So what she's doing, what Schwartz Morini is doing, is she's disrupting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's her thing. She wants to disrupt the process. She wants to disrupt the system. And I understand the strategy from her end. I totally get it, right? Like, I totally get it. And she knows that there's a soft spot in the market for pairing somebody like Snoop Dogg with Martha Stewart. It's going to get eyeballs, right? Just because they're so odd. Or
Mm-hmm.
bringing somebody like Michael Strahan, who's very different to Good Morning America than Regis Philbin with Kelly Ripa. It's going to get eyeballs, right? And so this is another kind of eyeball effect moment. But this is the woman who's behind Coach Prime.
Right.
She is the brand maker. And could we even say here that in some ways she's Deion's handler?
Absolutely, because he contacts her after a big college football win.
Yeah.
I don't think this woman is a fan of college football. I'm going to go out on a limb and make that assumption, because I really doubt she's somebody who knows the X's and O's in the traditions of these different programs. But she is the one he's in contact with immediately after one of the biggest upsets in college football history. After reading that article, the one thing that became clear to me is that Coach Prime is a cultural proxy. And it's not just about coaching. It's about getting this guy in as many advertisements as possible in order to transmute culture. When you look at guys like Wiz Khalifa and Snoop Dogg, are those guys good for culture? Absolutely not. What is the one thing that both of those guys normalized? They normalized not smoking pot. They normalized abusing marijuana. Wiz Khalifa specifically would smoke pounds, and he would brag about all these ounces that he would smoke. Wiz Khalifa is so physically dependent on marijuana. He describes how he shakes if he can't get a specific strain of marijuana that he sells. And I saw that happen because Wiz Khalifa, even, Snoop was a little bit before my time. He was, popular when I was 10 years old. But I saw when I was in high school in 2010, Wiz Khalifa was starting to get popular. He was very early on Twitter, but he did things that people didn't do before. He didn't just simply smoke pot in his music videos. He would smoke copious amounts of pot and sort of abuse the substance, right? So it's like when you lump Deion in with those guys like Wiz Khalifa and Snoop Dogg, and it's the same agent, it all makes sense why all these rappers are going to the games. We never saw this in college football. Like looking back on those first 4 games of Colorado football when they went 4-0 to start, it was rather absurd. I mean, their game against Michigan State was like the Hip Hop Source Awards or something. You know what I mean? And to this woman's credit, the smack, sports, media, and culture, that's what the Colorado football phenomenon is. It's not just about football. definitely not just about college sports. It's this mesh of, sports, media, and culture and entertainment. It's a pretty whack, freaking, what's his name? I forget who it was. The guy, Whitlock. Whitlock described, Shadur Sanders, for example, as hyper materialist. He's always waving his watch, and it's a hyper materialist culture is essentially what's being pushed here.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't you mention to me that Wiz Khalifa was on Joe Rogan?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, he had this, Wiz Khalifa had like a resurgence. Oh, I have a lot to say about him. He had a resurgence effectively when he started getting into shape and doing jujitsu. I think he's on some sort of testosterone personally, but it's interesting. He, and I bet the conversation was absolutely awful. Just Joe Rogan and Wiz Khalifa. I mean, room temperature IQ, completely stoned out of their minds. Nothing interesting to say other than, hey, I like UFC. I like pot. Dude, monkeys, space, just trash, right? So I can't imagine how awful that conversation was. Anyways, so yeah, Wiz Khalifa on Joe Rogan, and Wiz Khalifa's son, if you've ever seen him, it's sort of a Magic Johnson's son, Dwayne Wade's son
Oh no.
style of situation. Yeah, it's one of those. So a lot of bizarre things going on with Wiz Khalifa. I think he's on a mixture of highly potent marijuana all the time, but I think he's on some sort of TRT or some sort of steroid
Right.
to offset it.
Brandy Herrera tweeted this or comment. Hold on, where's this? Yeah, full disclosure, my boys played football when Snoop was a coach for his son.
Okay.
So that wasn't that in LA? And his son supposedly was a pretty good football player. And
I think he went to USC at one point. His son went to USC to play
he
football.
got a scholarship at USC.
Yeah.
I don't know if he stayed there or not.
Right.
But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing just feels, I mean, even getting Wiz Khalifa on Joe Rogan, like that's a power move,
Yes.
right? That is a power move by Schwartz Marini.
Mhm.
It's really fascinating how she's become this kind of kingmaker handler with what feels to me very much like a social agenda.
Yes.
Yeah.
She very much has an agenda that's kind of interlocked with some of her friends in media, and they're pursuing this angle, and it just puts things into context, on a larger scale, but also just sort of how these media kingmakers operate. She sort of reminds me of like a Lear Cohen, who's like the big kingmaker in hip hop.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Or Scooter Braun, one of those guys.
Right.
Yeah. The thing that's really fascinating, I bet you she totally kisses Deion's ass too.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's a Leo, right? He's a Leo with the Jupiter Sun conjunction in Leo.
She has to know he's a Leo too. She has to know these.
I think I tried to find her birthday.
Yeah.
Says she was born in March. I think she's probably Aries, but she strikes me as an Aries, right? Somebody who is, and she's probably pretty tough in negotiations, and probably reps her clients really well. But the whole thing about like this whole Coach Prime thing just seems so inorganic. Like he had to go to Schwartz Marini to kind of get this idea for the next stage of his life, right? Like I don't really understand that. I mean, I do on some level because a lot of these guys are just jocks, and all they know really is performance in sports, and maybe they can't see beyond the next game. I don't know, but as an individual, just on my own path, I think I've been able to say, okay, well, this is what I want to do next, or this is the next phase of my life, or like I don't necessarily feel like I need to go to a Monica Schwartz Marini, right? But somehow Deion did, right? Like somehow he needed this woman to validate him, which is really what it's about. He needed this woman to validate him and give him a blessing for his dream, And when you get into that territory, it gets very heavy and heady because you're into this whole psychological realm, right?
Right.
Like, yeah.
Deion strikes me as the type of guy that when he's down, he's down. Like he's very
Oh,
candid.
no, yeah, absolutely.
Like he's very candid and open about the fact that he had a suicide attempt.
Yeah.
When he was going through some issues and he wasn't allowed to see his kids, he ran his car, into something, and then he got pulled over. They're like, "Hey, Deion, what happened here, man?" He's like, "Come on, man, you know what happened." Yeah, he was really down and out about losing custody of his kids at one point. But is that a Leo thing as well? Is like when they're down, down.
Oh my God, yeah. It's like the sun goes down, right?
Okay.
It's pure gold. Yeah. Brandy Herrera's got some great comments tonight. She says, I didn't know he was. I've never heard that before, but something is up with this chick. She's made me physically ill. Ooh,
Wow.
that's a visceral reaction.
Mm-hmm.
WC, my man WC brought up a good point. This Showtime shit started with the Lakers. It's never been the same since.
Mm-hmm.
I would say so. In terms of like crossover marketing, branding, yeah, I would say the Showtime Lakers, got the party started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What sports has in common with entertainment is that it's about making stars. I think it was David Stern who had some quote about the NBA where he said, the NBA is about making stars. And you see that with like star players get star treatment. It's not as much of a meritocracy with some of the officiating. And you see that quite openly with the NBA. The star players get the star calls.
Well, Pat Mahomes didn't get one last night.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
But
so I was thinking, like, well, what were the factors that made the Showtime Lakers become sort of the brand of the NBA and really this sports franchise that became like a super brand? And I think it was the timing, because that team really comes online in the early 80s. And that's when cable TV is taken off. Right. And the broadcast possibility for cable TV is tremendous. Even Ted Turner knew this when he had his shitty Atlanta Braves teams broadcast on TNT. Nobody really cared about the Braves, but because it was his network and it was his team, it's like, here you go, rest of America. You get to see the Braves. And in a weird way, they became America's losers because they were terrible. Those Braves teams were terrible when they first started. But eventually when Joe Torre got there, they got much better. But I think cable TV and moving beyond the local markets, and David Stern was a great marketer, whatever you think of him in general.
Oh, yeah, he was awesome. I mean, he made the NBA a show. You know what I mean? Like the Showtime Lakers were the start, but he made it like a real like prime time show, know?
Yeah. Oh my God. Brandy has had a really intense connection here. She'll see us next time. I got to close the link to her. Sounds nuts. I know, but there you have it. Wow. So
wait, what'd you say? I missed that.
So Brandy is not vibing with Deion's handler. Look at that. Can you read that?
Yeah, I see that. She wants to close the link to her.
Wow.
Yeah, you get a bad gut feeling from this woman. I trust it, man. If you get a gut feeling about somebody, you're probably right. You know, and she's got an agenda, and the Coach Prime thing. I do think I had an epiphany the other night. If she's really his handler, and this Coach Prime thing is just in year one, and he stays in Colorado, he has no choice but to keep being Coach Prime for the next 10 years. He's kind of in his own prison.
That's a great point.
Dude, he's in like a zoo. He's a lion in a zoo now.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because he's the attraction of all of Colorado. All of Boulder.
Leo the lion in the zoo.
Absolutely. So he wanted an opportunity when he was down bad. She said, "Hey, come to my circus. I got a great circus for you. You're going to do
Right.
great. You're doing
Right.
great, kid. You're going to be a star.
Right.
Just you got to, you got to make a scene. You got to recruit these players. You got to do these press conferences. You're going to have to coach these guys. You don't have to coach that much, to be honest, but you got to recruit. You got to do these vlogs, these speeches. That's kind of your role here at the zoo."
I'm seeing something now in relation to this. There was this young offensive lineman, what's his name, Julian Beeston, or what's his name, the high schooler, the O tackle that signed with Colorado.
Oh, that kid is a star. Yeah, that kid. Oh, I think his name is Seaton. His last name is Seaton, Seaton.
Yeah,
I think I'll look it up. It's something Seaton, but that kid's a star. Just in terms of, I've never seen an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid so media ready, because I watched one of his interviews.
he's making the rounds in all the talk shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Man, look at this. Claire smudged her place.
Jordan Seaton is his name.
Jordan Seaton.
Jordan Seaton.
Monica Schwartz Marini does not have a good vibe.
Yeah. But here's the crazy thing is her power is probably going to expand because all those Colorado football players that are probably going to the NFL, guys like Travis, guys like Mr. Seaton, guys like Xavier Weaver.
We'll have Shiloh and Shador.
That's for sure. But she's definitely got her eyes on the other talent. She probably does.
I still think that Deion and Shador are going to fall out.
I can see that for sure. I can see that happening. I mean, so here's what I would say as a gambling man is, guy who bets occasionally for fun. I like futures picks. You know the deal. They've been recruiting like crazy. They've had 5 linemen signed to the team, including Mr. Seaton, who is like a top 25 overall recruit. They had a bunch of transfers come in. This is all within the last 3 or 4 days. Big young men, guys, 6'3", 6'5", 300 pounds plus. So the offensive line, they've had some big wide receivers sign. They're doing very, very well in the transfer portal, despite having a bunch of guys leave, including half the coaching staff went to San Diego State. The other half went to Charlotte. One guy went to Syracuse. A bunch of players left, but they've been recruiting their asses off. So they're going to be in effect next year.
Well, they have money too, right?
Yeah.
That's the other thing. These guys are getting paid to come there.
Right. And the media generation is sort of like, she has a really good niche, because if you're going to tell a big recruit, like, this isn't just about sports, this is about media, this is about culture, like, this is the place to be in this, realm of clicks and views and whatnot. This is where you want to go. That's a very effective pitch for these young men. But I'd be interested in potentially taking a small position in them getting in the 12 spot in the college football playoffs next year, just sneaking in that 12 spot because of all this agenda that's behind them. It's not because Deion's an amazing strategist. It's because this is a big cultural proxy.
When the nodes go into Aquarius Leo, that's when the strain on the father-son relationship will be at its greatest between the two of them.
And when is that?
That's a ways off. So the nodes are 19.5-month cycles. So we've got Pluto Virgo to go through. So that's 2 years. And then we also have the cycle we're currently in with Aries Libra, and we're about 14 months away from that changing. So roughly about 3.5 years, a little over 3.5 years. But when that happens, I think you'll see a pole shift in that relationship. All right, we got to talk some Capricorn quarterbacks here.
Okay.
And particularly old man Joe Flacco.
Okay.
Joe Flacco.
Still in the league, still in the NFL.
Joe Flacco was raking leaves about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right. And he got signed by the Cleveland Browns.
Wow.
And he came off the freaking street, right? Off the freaking street, and almost won against the Rams, right? And then Sunday, he did win, right? So Flacco almost won that first game. He was rusty, and he comes in, I think he's 38 years old. He's a total Capricorn. And, I don't see why he could not even with the NFL and all of its scripted bullshit, I don't see why Flacco can't, get into that Capricorn mode and, be the old guy, be the old goat. And he can still throw the ball really well. He doesn't move as well as he used to, but he could throw the ball really well. And Capricorn quarterbacks, they all have a signature. And their signature is that not a lot gets to them. Like, they're not very ruffled and they flatline. Like, if you've ever seen Joe Flacco or listened to talk, monotone, flatline kind of guy, right? Eli Manning is a Capricorn.
Wow.
And I never got the sense that anything bothered Eli Manning.
Right.
Right? Like, he might have been sort of the village idiot, type. Nothing bothers him, but nothing ever bothered Eli Manning. He was kind of another flatliner, kind of implacable, right? Drew Brees was a Capricorn. Now, he'd get all worked up before the game, do his little Drew Breesy thing. But when he got in the game, Drew Brees was, he was cool Brees. Nothing really ruffled Drew Brees very much.
Mm-hmm.
He was more than steady. He was very good. Now we got Lamar Jackson in the conversation, who's a Capricorn. And Lamar Jackson actually looks like a goat.
He does.
Right? He's got that kind of intense, sort of, animistic, almost Baphomet-like sort of like appearance about him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot gets to Lamar Jackson either. It's like he doesn't. I've never seen. I mean, except for his salary stuff, I never see him throw tantrums or clipboards. He's pretty cool, which is what Capricorns display. And now we've got Brock Purdy, who is wise beyond his years, which is a Capricorn signature. And Colin Cowherd, who also happens to be a Capricorn, gave him shit about wearing his baseball cap backwards. He's got this weird thing about men who wear their caps backwards.
Oh, okay.
Right. And Grant Cohen, who also happens to be a Capricorn, asked him a question at the presser the other day. And Brock was like, I'm just here to play football, win games. That's all I know about. Right. It's like the perfect answer. Like, I don't know. He didn't like take a big windup and a swing back at Colin Cowherd. It was just like business as usual. And even Tom Brady, who's a Leo and who has a Sun Saturn conjunction, is very Capricornian.
Right? Do you think Tom stays cool? I feel like Tom is very Leo when he gets upset.
Well, when he gets upset, but when he's on the field, Tom Brady's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
He's led a lot of comebacks. But no, I've seen Tom lose his shit.
Yeah.
Like, one of the games I watched was that 2012 season, and the Niners went into New England. It was the third game that Kaepernick started. And they beat the Patriots, and they nearly beat the pants off them if the Patriots didn't get back into the game in the second half. And you could tell Tom Brady was fucking pissed that he'd lost to the 49ers, because that was the team that he wanted to draft him. And not only that, but he lost to this upstart, right, in a way that Tom Brady couldn't play, because Kaepernick ripped off one of these, 45-yard runs that Brady could never do. Mm-hmm. So to your point, that was one of those games where he did get emotional. But in game, Tom Brady is pretty cool, right? I mean, I didn't see him lose his shit very much in between the lines. What about you?
You know what always bothered me about Tom is that, like, when he would kind of sit down and display this rather frustrated body language, he would just be like, you know what I mean? If he got sacked, he would sit down for a little bit and just, put his arms in the air. But those are the things I liked about him as well. I liked it when he freaking yelled at people that weren't doing their job. And I think that's actually an excellent form of leadership. So yeah, but he was so cool when he was just so fucking laser focused. You know what I mean? That's what really accelerated the cool, because it was like he was so like a lion hunting. You know what I'm saying? They're so focused that you can't really deter their vision in a space like that.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. There's one Capricorn quarterback that doesn't match the model, and that's Jameis Winston.
You know why he is kind of Capricorn? Because he is naturally funny, man. He's one of those guys that's like just happens to be hilarious. He does
But
things that are just funny.
he's funny,
Yeah.
but he does not have a lot of, not that he loses himself,
Mhm.
right? But he doesn't have a lot of like game composure. He makes a bunch of wild throws. He'll throw for a bunch of yards. He'll also throw for a bunch of bonehead interceptions.
His
Which
eyes are very goat-like, in my opinion. They're like wide and kind of like black.
they are, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's not Capricorn in that, very conservative, not a lot of interceptions.
Mhm.
Good game managers. Capricorns generally share those traits. What do we have
Nice.
here? Howie Long is a good Capricorn. Or is a Capricorn? Good dad. Anything else here in chat? Susie says Brady's plastic surgery is really bad.
I'm so bummed he decided to do that, man. I think, I wish he didn't do it because there was no need for it. I think that cameras and just all this videography on a human being can make
Yeah.
them go insane. It's a common pattern you see with a lot of these mega famous people. It's just that I just think that that much camera time can have a negative effect on people. That's my personal theory.
Howard says Carson Palmer is also a Capricorn. That's true. I forgot about it. Carson Palmer was actually a really good quarterback.
He was great at USC, that's for sure. And he was great on the Bengals too.
And for the Bengals, are you kidding me? I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't have a lot of. Well, he had some pretty good players in the Bengals. He had Ocho Cinco.
Yep.
Ocho Cinco's a Capricorn too, by the way.
What do you think is Capricorn about him in particular?
Oh, he's a cheap motherfucker.
Okay.
Yeah, he's cheap. Like money wise, Chad knows a dollar. He knows the value of a dollar. Like he and Shannon's a Cancer. So they've got this show.
I watch that. I've seen some clips. They're actually pretty funny together.
They're pretty good. And Ocho Cinco is very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Shannon Sharp was commenting about how Brock Purdy is sharing a condominium with one of his teammates.
Wow.
Right. And Shannon's like, what are you doing? How come you don't have your own place? And, don't bring girls over. I was like, first of all, Brock Purdy is engaged. He's a Christian, right? He's not going to indulge in that lifestyle. Right. So he's kind of capping on him because he's got some NFL money, but he doesn't have a house. Right. And Chad Ochocinco is like, Brock, you're smart. You're smart. Hold on to your money, young fella. Hold on to your money. You don't need that. So Ochocinco, he's that guy. He's always counting where his money goes. So that which is odd because Cancers are also they're also very conservative.
Did Chad Ochocinco famously live at a practice facility in order to
save
money?
He lived at the stadium in Cincinnati for 2 years in the practice facility.
That's miraculous.
You know who else did that? Gilbert Arenas did that when he was with the Warriors.
Wow.
His whole first season with the Warriors, he lived at the freaking Coliseum.
Wow.
Yeah, and he did it to save money. And Chad was the same way. And it's like, Chad, you got to go.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, you know how he fucked up?
How?
He changed his name, and numerologically, it changed his vibration.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I buy into that.
He was a much better player as Chad Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And when he became Ocho Cinco, I noticed he wasn't as good.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that team receiver-wise was loaded. They had Terrell Owens, they had Chris Henry, they had T.J. Houshmandzadeh, and they had Chad Johnson.
Did Chris Henry die?
Chris Henry did die. He was in the back of a pickup truck, and they were driving down the road. Who knows? Maybe it fucked up or something. And he flew out of the pickup truck.
That's gruesome.
Yeah, Chris Henry was a beast. Chris Henry was about 6'5", weighed about 225 pounds.
Yeah,
and he ran like a 4.4 540, and wasn't bad catching the ball. Chris Henry was. When I played fantasy football, he was my sleeper.
Yeah,
like flex guy. I'd pick him up.
So when I think of a few NBA guys that are Capricorns, and specifically LeBron comes to mind. But there's this sort of careerist, sort of climbing of the pyramid involved with Capricorn as well, right? And I see that a lot. That's something that really is Capricornian to me. That
SDRG, this perfect segue.
Yeah.
SDRG, who is the condescending dude on Fox Sports? That's Colin Cowherd. And
Colin Cowherd. Okay, yeah,
is a Capricorn, and
okay.
Colin Cowherd they're always about climbing the ladder.
Yep.
Right. Starts Volume or the Volume or whatever it's called. He's got his restaurant. Like Colin is clearly Capricornian in nature. So yeah, good comment. Great segue to your point, Al.
LeBron is like that to the maximum, where it's like, Warriors practice facility was atop the Marriott Hotel downtown Oakland. Why would Arenas live at that Coliseum? Interesting point. Because I think it would be very difficult to pull off.
Yeah, but that's where he lived. He lived at the Coliseum, right? I guess they had trained. Maybe he lived at the Marriott. I don't know. When I was in the Bay Area, their practice facility was at the Alameda County College.
Yeah,
college there. Let's see.
Oh, you know what's funny? I got to mention this real quick. You brought up Lamar Odom, right? So I used to see Lamar Odom at University of Rhode Island bars, because he went to school where I went to school at the University of Rhode Island, and that's kind of a common thing that a lot of pro athletes do. They go back to their alma mater and they train, and they do that. It's a common thing. So when Lamar Odom, like, I look up at the bar and it's fucking Lamar Odom, right? And this is when he was going through all of his episodes with the crack, with the weird videos, in and out of the NBA, really fucking up. So it was weird to see him, and he was at like every bar night for like a week. It was like a thing. Everybody wanted to get a picture with Lamar Odom.
Lamar was an amazing player, by the way.
Yeah, he was fucking incredible. 7 foot tall shooter. Like he was
the ball up and pass.
Yeah, he's incredible.
So here it is. Gil Arena shares why he used to sleep at Oracle Arena as a rookie. So there we go. So he said, I bought an Escalade, had 5 TVs in it, 4 12-inch speakers, saw Gary Payton with the suede, had the suede on top, suede roof. I had the big chain, just like he ran out of money. That's why he had to live there. He fucking ran out of money. He burned through his rookie contract.
Right. It's amazing what percentage of a lot of these professional athletes do end up going broke. A lot of them go broke just because of their ludicrous spending habits.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to manage, their assets versus liabilities and whatnot.
Well, they get a lot of people that chip on their salary too, right? They have a lot of leeches in their lives. And it's like, oh, okay, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. I remember the story about Vince Young, and he rented a charter plane for him and like 37 of his buddies, right? Instead of just buying everybody a ticket on a regular plane, he had to rent a charter plane. And Vince Young just blew through all of his cash. Jim Bob Cooter. I've heard of Jim Bob Cooter.
I haven't. Who is that?
Wasn't Jim Bob Cooter a coach in the NFL? I think he was an offensive coordinator. Let's look at Jim Bob Cooter. It's a great name, Jim Bob Cooter.
I'm looking at
he's the offensive coordinator for the for the Colts. I think I remember him as being the OC of the Lions at one point.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I see some Lions.
Yeah, Jim Bob Cooter. I've heard of Jim Bob Cooter. Absolutely. Travis Henry had a long run about the running back. We're talking. Maybe Henry's just a cursed name, because we were talking Chris Henry, a different Henry. Let's see. Well, Al, do you have anything else you want to add to Cap? And so the other thing too about Capricorn quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, the Super Bowl was actually played more in January than it was February. So Capricorn quarterbacks would have a better chance because of their sun sign being engaged at the time of the Super Bowl. And now it could be that some Capricorn, it was interesting. I always thought that it would be to Brady's disadvantage with the sun in his opposite sign in Aquarius during the Super Bowl. He proved me wrong on many occasions. Yeah. Oh, he's talking about Nick Wright. Oh, yeah, Nick Wright. You know Nick Wright over on Fox?
I don't, but if I Google it, I'll definitely recognize him.
He's fucking obnoxious.
It's so crazy how people have like media careers by just being obnoxious. Yeah, Nick Wright definitely looks obnoxious. That's for sure.
And he used to be like totally shaved head.
Oh, yeah.
And he looks even more obnoxious with the long hair thing going on. Yeah. All right, Al. I think we got another one in the books.
Yeah, great show, guys. That was fun.
Let me load the video here.
Okay.
We'll get on out of here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Check out the Substack that Al is putting together. And I'm actually going to be doing some writing over there as well.
Nice.
And let me just bring our. There it is.
The outro.
All right.
Be serious, man. You
Right,
cannot
everybody.
be serious.
Be serious.